Thank you, Dan. Just doing a quick sound check. You guys can hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you very much. My name, as Dan mentioned, is Harjeet. I'm the founder and CEO of a company named Savormetrics, a company we started about 5 years ago with the interest of helping to solve a major problem in the food growing, processing, retail sectors. And that had to do with quality assurance, quality control. We saw within the industry a lot of practices that at the end of the day, everyday consumers like you and I would find the deficiencies. For example, I'm sure that you've been in a situation where you bought a bunch of avocados and they never ripened. Or you bought a bag of grapes and by the time you got home, they were already starting to decay because they were closer to senescence. Or you bought a bag of fries and they're semi-fried and they're frozen and now you complete the frying process and they just don't taste right or they don't look right. And that's a typical problem within the food industry whereby a lot of this quality assurance, quality control happens manually. Believe it or not, multi-billion dollars worth of inventory moves based on human eyes, touch, feel, squeeze, even taste, human taste, tribal knowledge, etc. So we set about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, establishing a new way of doing things. So in doing so, we gave ourselves a definition. And yes, it is a play on the baseball term Savormetrics. So the idea being, what if we could use sensors to pick up key parameters off of food items, so meaning defects, or maybe even a little deeper and pick up things like salt, sugar, chlorophyll, those sort of metrics, and then allow food sector companies to make smart business decisions. So smart meaning data-driven for growing, for procurement, or for simple inventory movement, and in other cases for processing or even selling. That was our hypothesis. You've seen all the gory numbers. 1/3 of all food that's created is wasted. The amount of land used on eventually wasted food is 1.5 times the size of US every year. And the amount of water that's wasted 10 times the volume of Lake Geneva. There's just so much is out there. I'm sure you've heard it. When you boil it down to what does it mean to players within that industry, it means that 15 to 20% of their food inventory is shrunk, in the sense it's thrown out, just because there's poor quality assurance, quality control. And we're talking about growers, distributors, processors, and retailers, all of which happen to be our target markets. That in itself, solving that problem, is a $60 billion market opportunity globally, because that problem persists across the globe. Our solution is simple. Relatively speaking, sensors that pick up signals from food items, whether it's stationary or if it's inline, doesn't matter to us, that those features are sent into our award-winning AI framework. There, we're able to then not just pull out some level of information or just dump data on our customer. In our decision support software, we're providing them with insights like shelf life, how many days it truly has to live, the probability of defects forming of type A, B, or C, so that they can make smart decisions on how to process further or where to sell it or how quickly to sell it. Business model is simple. It's purely subscription fee-based model. Depending on how many and type of metrics, it ranges from $5,000 to $25,000 per year, 5-year opt-out. These are the 7 key metrics that stand us apart from our competition. Yes, lab testing, some NIR devices, but really our competitors are manual testers. And we didn't come up with these accidentally. We studied the industry, knew it had to be ultra affordable, non-destructive, 6-month payback period, predictive metrics, and had to be quite accurate too. And that's what we built. We put our efforts towards. The social piece is also important for us as well, folks. So we report 2 ROIs. The social ROI piece is important to us. We've won a lot of awards for reducing the amount of food waste, and our technology can reduce it by up to 70%. Also, by optimizing processes, they also end up saving energy as well. Beyond that, we also have an impact on human health. We reduce the amount of water usage as well. So we've become quite popular within competitions that we've entered, named Sustainable Development Technology Canada, that awarded us a few $1 million Impact Food Waste Reduction Challenge that we just recently won as well. I'm sounding a little bit unhumble, but we've won a number of awards for being a top-tier company in an industry that desperately needs technology. I highlight our senior team, but really it's not just us, it's our full team, and our team that really has a lot of expertise in being able to take knowledge on how to use very small amount of data to make very high level of accurate or highly accurate predictions. That comes from our experience for the last 15 to 20 years working in the medical industry, deploying commercially viable AI solutions. And that is something that now we'd like to see on our end scale. We're close to now scaling. We've got repeat sales, major customers, Fortune 500 customers, location now too where we feel that we can really grow out of, and that's the state of Michigan. We're looking to raise $5 million. We've got interest of non-dilutive 5 that would be matched with this. Important for us is to find investors that can provide us with mentorship to become a unicorn. And yes, that is our goal, to become a true unicorn based off of revenue generation. In the next 5 years, we'd like to get to $100 million in revenue. So global scale of expertise and being able to access global markets, those are the sort of elements that we hope that our future investor would be able to help us go. I'll end my presentation here, and I look forward to any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Arjun. All right, judges, any questions for Arjun?
Thank you, great presentation. Question on, Dan mentioned, and you kind of alluded to your investment here within the state. Do you have a sense of what the size of the market is in Michigan in this industry, and how do you plan to, get to that 100 million mark by supporting the Michigan food processors and distributors?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So we do know that one of the elements that excited us about Michigan was the fact that the third largest amount of expenditure in food and ag is within that region. And we've closed a few customers within the region as well. So again, because our technology applies to growers, distributors, processors, and retailers, a rough estimate is that within Michigan itself, we have a market that is equal to about $500 million. So that's the total addressable market. So it becomes a good place for us to sink our roots into, and definitely our resources that will be required to acquire those customers. That's what the next round of funding will be used.
Could you walk us through the workflow of onboarding a distributor of, say, a wheat flour, for example? Like, how is the technology implemented, and how are you producing the results?
So when we do our sales, we sell our device, we call it the Big Zapper. So if it's offline, it's a Big Zapper. Inline, it's called the SavorSense. So one of those two devices makes it to their site. We deliver that usually within about a week's time. From there, then we have 2 weeks to train our AI. So again, it's pretty much all the same models, but something is always slightly different on how they want the output to be represented. So within 2 weeks, we customize it, so to speak, and at that point in time, then it's onboarded. And at that point in time, the subscription fee then starts.
Is there an element of sampling? Like, if you have a warehouse full of sacks of wheat flour, do you have to pick and choose and sample? And could you discuss how you do that?
That's a very good question. So there it depends. So every customer has their own method of sampling. So we do provide guidance where they're interested in guidance on having a truly representative sample. In some cases, like with our SGS-based customers, it's 150 grams of samples, and that's how they do it. Now, our technology does provide the opportunity to be able to batch and do more than 150 grams if you want to get a true representation of what's on the truck that's coming in, or whether it's already in the warehouse. But how much they sample, we leave it to their teams unless they ask us for advice. Our technology does allow for batch sampling, so meaning they can get a lot more samples than they would do traditionally manually.
Just have a question on, excuse me, your process when it comes to your moat in your business and competition. Is that through process or through intellectual property?
It's both, I'd say. I think really our prowess in being able to get to very high levels of accuracy off of very small amounts of data. So meaning, where our competitors will say, well, on the AI side, say, well, we need, hundreds of thousands of samples in a year's time before we can build you a system. We say we need 100 samples, and the rest of the data we will generate ourselves, and we will have a viable system up for you within 3 weeks. So that's really our true competitive advantage. Now, of course, there's a lot to it within the AI framework, from how we get a pipeline that we parallel process to how we do compression, and then of course the machine learning algorithms and some of the periphery algorithms on how we do transfer learning, etc. That is proprietary, so there's a lot of, there's some protection there that we have. But then also, I think one other piece that I should highlight is our business team, our ability to understand what really is it that the customer is asking for, and then being able to build that solution for our customer. And then being astute enough to know what customers to go after, where 95% of what we're providing is turnkey, it's the same modules, and the 5% tweak that we do doesn't cost us too much.
You got one more? Go ahead.
Just one quick question on the technology. So as you're training the model for those 2 weeks of the implementation, the sensors, does it have traceability to know when those grapes go bad or when the bananas go bad? How do you trace back to say, this has 1 more week of shelf life, or this has 7 days? What's the technology? How does that do?
So there's a certain key biochemical fingerprints that allow you to do that. So chlorophyll, just to give you some examples, chlorophyll is one of them. And you can pick them up at a few different wavelengths. And then there's moisture, and depending on the food item. So for quite a number of these over the last 5 years, we've built out the models already. So what happens on site is just we're basically now just making sure that there isn't any anomalies that pop up, meaning coating or pesticide or something else to skew the results. So from that standpoint, we have those models built. Now, there are times where we do have to ask our customer to annotate. They have something unique that they want us to identify or resolve between, especially defects, maybe 2 defects that look very similar, that we require in that 2-week period of time that the customer do the annotation for us.
Great, thank you. Judges, join me in thanking our